listening to WICR, Iona College Radio.
From the third floor of the Murphy Center here at Iona College, this is your host, The Rock is on DePala, on this Thursday, March 10th, 2016. Yesterday was the first day of the new NFL calendar year and the first day of NFL free agency. And a lot of teams, a lot of moves, a lot of players on the move, a lot of teams, doing well in free agency and succeeding in that aspect, and a lot of teams, were on the other end of that, the bad side of it, if you want to say it that way. But out of all the moves that occurred yesterday, I think the most surprising one, and I think most of us can agree upon, was the Houston Texans acquiring Brock Osweiler. Osweiler, he signed a 4-year, $72 million deal, and you got to think, wow. For a guy that only had 7 starts last year, a touchdown to interception ratio of 10-6, that's amazing if you think about it. It's just unbelievable. The Broncos, and John Elway said after the move was made, or after Osweiler made his decision to sign with Houston, he made it clear that, hey, you know what? We gave him this amount of money, which was I believe about 15 million a year. For I think it was like a 3-year contract, 14 to 15 million, and he said, you know what? If you don't want to take this, then take a hike. We're giving you what you're projected to be worth, and we want to keep guys that are that want to play as Broncos, that want to be here and do whatever it takes to help the team, and he's not shy to admit it. But imagine that for Houston now. You go from being a borderline playoff team with the current quarterback situation you have now, with and the whole carousel you had the past year with Brian Hoyer, Brandon Weeden, T.J. Yates, to potentially being a playoff team, and who knows, if you put a few more weapons around Osweiler, maybe even a Super Bowl team. And then and you have the best defensive player, or the best defensive line in football with J.J. Watt. So I think the Texans, in terms of power ranking and in terms of being better as a team, just increased mightily. And now which leads us back to the Broncos. What does John Elway and company have up their sleeve? How are they gonna overcome this? Because Peyton Manning retired. Peyton's not coming back. And even if he was coming back, I don't think the Broncos were interested of bringing him back. So Peyton's gone, and now everyone thought that Brock Osweiler was going to be handed the keys to the Broncos quarterback position. He's out the door, which leads Trevor Simon as the only quarterback on the Denver Broncos roster. And I'm just telling you, John Elway, I believe that John Elway and company messed this up mightily. They messed this up mightily. Because after the Super Bowl, because this is what I think John Elway should have done. After the Super Bowl, after the Super Bowl victory and after the Super Bowl parade, he should have went up to Peyton Manning and said, and maybe talk to Gary Kubiak about it, but he should have went up to Peyton Manning and said, look, listen, I appreciate what you've done for this organization and this team for the last 4 years, but regardless of your decision, what you have in mind in the future, we're moving on without you. And as soon as he said that to Peyton, his immediate focus should have been on Brock Osweiler, because it's proven that nowadays it's a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have a solid quarterback or even a decent quarterback, you will not win games in the NFL. It's just proven. It's just a proven fact. Look what happened with before the accusation of Osweiler. Look what happened with the Texans. No quarterback. Granted, they made the playoffs, but they were in a weak division. They won the division at 9-7. So, but you saw what happened in the playoffs with Brian Hoyer, a weak quarterback. Or look at the Eagles when you had Sam Bradford. Decent, at best, decent quarterback, but you know what? Overall, not that good of a quarterback. You need to have a quarterback to win football games and even championships in the NFL. So now with the accusation of Brock Osweiler going to the Texans, this leaves the Denver Broncos in a precarious situation in terms of the quarterback position, because they already lost Danny Trevathan to the Bears, or two of their defenders in free agency. They lost Danny Trevathan to the Bears, and they lost Malik Jackson, who was the best defensive free agent and was ranked number one out of the 99 free agents on NFL.com. He went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you lost two of your you lost two of your starting defensive players, and you lost your quarterback, and you're possibly going to lose both your running backs and Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson. So wow, the defending Super Bowl champs, they lose two starters on their defense. They lost their quarterback. They don't have a tight end, and they have no running backs. And like I said, this with Osweiler signing with the Houston Texans, it puts the Broncos in a precarious situation, because they go from having a quarterback, they're going from having Peyton Manning to having Brock Osweiler, or giving the keys to Brock Osweiler with no problem, to now having nobody. So now they have to rely on who? Colin Kaepernick, who I think he just needs a fresh start, and he needs a change of scenery to rejuvenate his career and bring up his confidence. Or RG3? No. See, now, if I'm John Elway, I would not bring RG3 on this team. Not at all. Because RG3, he's a prima donna. You heard a few days ago that when he was on the team, his linemen, and the wide receivers, and I think the tight end at the time, Chris Cooley, they despised him. They didn't like him because they didn't view him as a leader. Or and then the report that he used like a train session, or like a rehab session as an endorsement or something like that. If you're John Elway, do you want that kind of player on your team? Do you? I'd rather take a chance on Kaepernick, on a guy who I believe has a better chance of being successful than a guy who's a prima donna and then has been heavily criticized, not so much for his play on the field, but like what he does off the field. But with the accusation of Brock Osweiler, this puts John Elway and the Broncos in a difficult position, and they have to reevaluate the team, and it's going to be I think it's going to be a completely different Bronco team, and it's going to be extremely difficult for them to repeat as Super Bowl champs. But we should see what happens with the rest of NFL free agency and in the draft, and that concludes our segment of The Rock is On. Have a great day, everyone.